So now, the first rule there is to slow down. For those of you that come here a lot, will know what that means. But not everyone knows what it means to slow down. Like just to bring our attention here a little bit more. To be more aware of where we are. Like, to think about it a bit. We're in the masjid, for a start, like the house of Allah. And we've chosen as a big group of people to take some time out to sort out our relation with Allah. And we've chosen to come to the masjid to do that. And now we're here thinking about it. Like we're on a mission to make ourselves better. To make ourselves more grateful for the blessings of Allah. And then, all of that energy combined, we all pray Maghrib together, and now we're all here together with this collective kind of energy to become better. And there's angels all around us because we're engaged in blessed activity. Angels seek us out, basically, to make it easier for us. Sometimes we rush through life so fast that it becomes impossible to notice these things. That's why slowing down is very, very important. That's rule number one. Removing distractions means, like, we have those phones, which are very, very distracting. But like, phones are bad enough. But nowadays, alhamdulillah, none of you are on your phones, as I can see. But we're still distracted with our thoughts. Like we can be here physically in our physical body, but we can be so distracted thinking about things which are going to happen next week, next month, or happened last year. And we're so distant from where we're meant to be sometimes. If we come to the masjid to try and connect ourselves, we have to kind of bring ourselves actually into the masjid. That's really, really important. To slow down, get rid of these distractions. And especially the distraction of thoughts, of thinking about random things. So to try and slow ourselves down a little bit, bring ourselves more into where we are. And this is really applicable to every spiritual exercise, whether it's gratitude here, or we're going to connect to Allah. When we pray salah, before praying salah, we're meant to do wudu. We're meant to wash our body. That's not meant to be a rushed exercise either. So we're meant to come to wudu with some serenity, and wash our hands and our face, and perform wudu with serenity, calmly. And that's meant to slow us down a little bit. So when we come for salah, then we pray the sunnah, and then that gets us even more ready. Then we're actually ready to pray salah, because we're a bit distracted by default. So this is something very important as a primary rule, to try and bring our attention towards where we are. Then the second rule, is everyone following the rules, yeah? Everyone awake off the wall? Everyone's back on the walls, mashallah. Okay, so second rule, to be curious. This is a very important one. Curiosity is also an emotion. It's a bit like gratitude. So we can bring it and we can try and incite curiosity. Here, we're trying to do gratitude. So it's possible some of us we know what gratitude means. We might have read some of the Quran and we might believe we're actually quite grateful people. But when we bring curiosity to the exercise, when we think about it as if it's the first time we're ever doing it. Imagine if you do this for any spiritual exercise, you do this for salah. When you come to salah, imagine you've never prayed before. It's like the first time you're going to have this experience of going into divine proximity. It makes it feel very different. Because very often we come and it's like, oh yeah, it's one of those things. So this is why knowing, I've put on the handout, knowing is the enemy of learning. These are two verbs, isn't it? Knowing and learning. So knowing is when you know something. If you decide you know something, it becomes impossible. There's some verbs you can do them together. Like you could probably juggle and ride a bike at the same time. It's a bit difficult, but you can still do it together. Knowing and learning are two verbs, you can't do them together. When you've decided you know something, if you decide, I know how to pray salah, I know how to recite Surah Fatiha, I know how to do gratitude, I know how to be a really good person. And when you come into the state of mind of knowing, it becomes very difficult. Your mind becomes quite rigid. It becomes very difficult to actually learn. So being in a state of curiosity about this exercise is very, very important. So we're actually interested, why is this so important? Why does Allah talk about this so much in the Quran? Why is this something which I need to try and bring into my life? Why is gratitude important to me? And how, what will happen when I practice this? So this is, I think, a second useful rule. That's the second rule, yeah? And the third rule is to ask a question. So we slow down a little bit, we bring some curiosity, then we ask one of the questions. Now, asking questions without judgment, asking questions with judgment might cause trouble. When we ask questions and we remove judgment, we don't worry too much about the answer. This is a very good kind of recipe for curiosity, for softening our mind, for allowing us to open up. And being happy without judgment is important. Because by default, I teach a lot of people, so everyone is terrified of mistakes. So when people come and like they're going to read the Quran to me, they're like very scared of the mistake, so they try and rush when they come to the mistake. It's not just you, everyone does it. So whenever people come to mistakes, they rush past it. Because most of us, when we were being taught the Quran, some of us are old enough to have been, like physical violence would have occurred while being taught the Quran. So because of that, we have a fear of the mistakes that we make when we recite the Quran. So when we do that, if we do this when we ask a simple question, for example, the most oft repeated question in the Quran, who knows what that is? فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ? The one written down in question 3. So when we ask ourselves this question, which of the favors of Allah do you deny? Now this is a question which we can actually work out. We can work out the answer. And then we can learn how we can be more grateful and less in denial about the things which Allah has given us. So this is a really beautiful question for gratitude. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ? That which of the blessings of Allah are you in denial of? Let's put it a bit nicer. Which of the blessings of Allah are you not as aware of as you maybe should be? Have you kind of forgotten about? Which of those blessings are there? And then the fourth rule is to take this question and apply it to a category. Today we read Surah Abasa, so there's Allah there in Surah Abasa, He brings attention to the Quran. كَلَّا إِنَّهَا تَذْكِرَةٌ فَمَنْ شَاءَ ذَكَرَهُ. Allah talks about the greatness of the Quran, how lucky we are to have the Quran. And again, we all know we have the Quran, but sometimes we forget how lucky we are to have the Quran. And when we bring ourselves to this category of the Quran and spirituality as a whole, that includes praying salah, we're really lucky to have the chance to just connect to Allah whenever you feel like and ask Him whatever you want. That opportunity, every spiritual opportunity, the Quran is something, even if you don't understand Arabic, like most of us here, even if you don't understand Arabic, reciting the Quran in Arabic is in itself such a great tool to connect us to Allah, to get us back in touch with Allah. It's not that complex. And we've all got access to it. We've all got the chance to learn it. Nowadays with YouTube, it requires just a bit of dedication and copying somebody with a bit of, it'd be better to get a teacher, but if you can just start copying and practicing and trying to improve the way we recite Quran, then we can start developing this relationship with the Quran. It's really so easy. But sometimes we deny it and we forget how many opportunities we have to reconnect ourselves with Allah. Allah brings attention to the Quran. And obviously our salah is the same. Being here today in this gathering is the same. How many people can take out like 2 hours from their life just to sit and think about how they can be more connected to Allah? How they can have more gratitude? How they can be more aware of the things Allah has given? And we've got that chance. Some of us travel from far, far away. I think I advertised outside this time. So we've got people from Ipswich and Chelmsford and Moseley and Tiptree and all these places, alhamdulillah. So when this energy comes together and we all together try and increase the gratitude that we have, it's an opportunity really like no other. Like trying to get our spirituality up. And then we pray Maghrib together. We get to feel this together. So that's the first thing. Allah brings a bit of attention. So that, if you want that on your handout, that's like on the front Surah Abasa, that's the second heading, the grandeur of the Quran. I don't know what that word means. But the greatness of the Quran is probably what I was meant to write. But Allah speaking about how valuable the Quran is, like it brings attention back to it, and like, so how can we have forgotten about this? Like we've kind of become in denial of that. That's the first thing. The second category about the blessings, where Allah says, قُتِلَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا أَكْفَرَهُ. Where Allah says that is so, may humans be destroyed, they're so ungrateful. When it comes back to the water bottle, they're always focusing on what they don't have, and they've forgotten what they've got. If we come back to the hadith, they've forgotten the valleys of gold that they've got within their lives, and the opportunities they've got. So Allah then brings attention. مِنْ أَيِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقَ. What have you been? Now Allah brings attention to our creation as human beings. Like, what has Allah created us from? And when we think about that, our creation, our build-up, our whole body, just from a physical aspect, the fact that we have eyes so we can see. Most of us can see all of the colors in this room. The whole spectrum of colors, we can see all of them. So how often do we bring attention to the fact that Allah has given us this opportunity, this blessing. Then this is like very physical. We have hands, so most of us can walk. Most of us don't have to sit against the wall. So many different blessings. We've managed to come here. And as well as that, different internal organs, like our heart, our body does so much for us, and we forget how much we need to love our bodies and really look after our bodies. Like how much it does for us. The heart, how much hard work the heart does for us to pump blood all over the body. How amazingly our brains work. We're so lucky to have brains. Sometimes we forget to use them, but we're so lucky to have brains. And the way that they work for us, and they make us better all the time. So much that our body is doing for us. We've got it all for free. And then our nurturing, our development, the systems we have going on. Like when we eat something, we don't have to worry about its digestion or like how the enzymes are working. Like when our skin it flakes off and new skin is formed, we don't have to pay for the operation so the new skin is formed. So many things going on within our body. Now we start thinking about it, we realize it will actually take quite a long time, and we don't have that much time. So we move on to the next category. But opening ourselves, keeping our thoughts a little bit at bay, remembering to be curious and ask the question, which of the favors of Allah are we a bit forgetful of? So the last section of Surah Abasa, which I want to bring attention towards, are verses 24 to 32, which is on the front of the handout right at the bottom, which is Allah brings attention towards the food that He's given us. And things that, for those of us in this room, those of you that are listening even online, the things that we have in our lives, like the opportunity that we have for us to complain about our lives, it actually seems a bit silly sometimes. Like, if we open our fridges and try counting how much food's inside, if we go into our kitchens and see how many months supply we have of some foods, if we think of our luxury items, how many of us have access to a fridge, which is quite rare in some parts of the world. Like, most of the world doesn't have a flushing toilet. And over 60% of the world wouldn't have a flushing toilet. Or sanitation, things like taps and all this stuff which we take for granted. Fadid, you're early. So all of these things which we take for granted all the time, these are things which we have to remember to bring our attention towards. If we start taking them for granted, we'll forget about them. When these brothers are trying to explain what gratitude is and why it's important, it's a bit difficult because this whole thing is not really an intellectual exercise. Intellectually, everyone here will accept that that everyone here will intellectually accept that we're one of the most fortunate peoples in the world. The amount of opportunities that we have is unparalleled sometimes. There's so much good going on in our lives. But sometimes we become people who we just look so much at what we don't have, and we forget to bring attention to what we do have. So this is an exercise. This exercise, when we do it, when we go through it, we take some time out of our lives to try and do. There's 4 rules there, which are quite useful. But trying to keep those rules in mind and going through this on a daily basis, and trying to make it a part of our daily lives. Because obviously, last time we spoke about praying, reciting the Quran properly, or connecting to Allah with taqwa and tawakkul and these kind of things. So this is in English, so this is something we can actually understand as well. How in debt we are permanently to Allah. And one of the most beautiful things about this is that when we start thinking about what we actually have, then this actually builds our tawakkul. It actually builds our trust in Allah. When you're more aware of what Allah's given you, you're much more likely to trust that Allah will carry on giving you stuff. When you know what Allah's given you. And then knowing, if you every day you make a list, now these people have, how many days have you guys been doing gratitude for?
Almost 2 weeks now.
2 weeks, mashallah. 14 days, every day something written down, something they're grateful for. It's a very, very simple exercise. This is writing it down so he puts it into words. But thinking about the exercise itself, bringing our attention towards the stuff that we do have. And then when we make dua, and we've got this whole list in our mind of the things that Allah has already given us, or the things that are already going right, then we believe that our dua is going to be accepted, because we already know that Allah gives us everything we ask Him for anyway. So our tawakkul goes about trusting Allah. Allah being a part of us in our life becomes something so much more normal. It becomes so much more possible. So whenever we have a difficulty in our life, and sometimes somebody might annoy us, or we might be like in traffic. So we get in a traffic jam, or we get to the front of the queue in Waitrose, and there's a queue there. That doesn't happen in Waitrose. We get to the front of the queue in Dido and there's a queue, and we feel a bit annoyed. Then this moment of annoyance, even when we're feeling bad, we're feeling a bit sad, even that's an opportunity for gratitude. Even if you just remember that Habib said that, when you get annoyed, try and have some gratitude. That's a chance for us to realize what still is going right. Sometimes we get so annoyed at somebody cutting us off in traffic. It's very emotional, I know, but we don't actually have to get that sad about it. And then if we can just remember what's going right, the car's still working, you didn't have an accident, all of these amazing things happen, and we don't actually notice, because it doesn't happen in the news. It doesn't make the news, does it? When somebody doesn't crash, when somebody doesn't die. So this is why we're accustomed to actually always aiming for the half of that cup which we don't have. And we're never happy with what we have. So this is why this exercise, this is an imbalance. Over focus on what we want and don't have, under focus on what we're meant to have. So this exercise which we just did, the 4 rules are there, that helps bring more attention to what we do have. And we realize the values that we have in our life. So I hope that makes sense.